The chamber was massive, built to hold representatives from 100 different worlds. D1 sat in the human section, a small space near the back. 3 weeks had passed since the Rinki first sent their distress signal. 3 weeks of debate and discussion while people died. Hyjin leaned close to him. "They're going to vote against helping again," she whispered. Her voice was tired. She had been translating the alien languages for hours. D1 watched as the Rinki delegates stood at the center platform. They were small creatures, barely reaching a human's waist. Their fur was gray, and their large eyes showed fear and desperation. One of them held a data device with shaking hands. "Please," the Rinki speaker said through the translation system, "please look at what they are doing to us." The hologram activated above them. Images filled the air, cities burning, bodies in the streets, children crying over parents who would never wake up. The Krath Dominion had attacked without warning. Their massive ships had appeared in orbit and began destroying everything below. 17 million dead in the first week, the Rinki continued. Our military could not stop them. Our defenses failed. We have 3 billion people left, but the Krath kill more every day. We are hiding underground now. We are running out of food and water. The chamber was quiet. Some representatives looked away from the images. Others examined their data tablets as if the information there was more important than lives ending. Ambassador Thelver, the council speaker, stood. His feathers were bright blue and his voice was calm. Too calm. "The council recognizes the suffering of the Rinki people. However, we must consider all factors before taking action." "All factors," D1 muttered. Hyjin put a hand on his arm, a warning to stay quiet. Representative Quindar rose from his seat. His scales gleamed under the lights. His species controlled the largest fleet in the galaxy. "The Krath Dominion is a recognized sovereign power. They claim the Rinki system violated their territorial boundaries. We cannot simply invade their space without proof." "Proof?" A Rinki delegate pointed at the images still floating above them. "What more proof do you need? They are killing us." "Nevertheless," Quindar continued, "military intervention would be costly. My species alone would need to commit at least 40 warships. The expense would be significant. Additionally, if we attack the Krath, it might cause them to strike at other worlds. We could start a larger war." Other representatives nodded. One by one they stood and gave their reasons. Too expensive, too dangerous, too complicated. The legal situation was unclear. The Krath might have legitimate grievances. Perhaps the Rinki should try negotiation again. D1 felt his hands curl into fists. He had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat. He had seen war. He knew what it meant when people talked about acceptable losses and strategic calculations. Those were words people used when they wanted to look away from suffering. "The chair recognizes a vote on the measure to provide military aid to the Rinki homeworld," Thelver announced. The voting began. Species after species rejected the proposal. Some votes came quickly, others after long pauses. But the result was always the same. No help would come. The Rinki delegates began to weep. The sound was soft but carried through the chamber. None of the other representatives looked at them. D1 stood up before he could stop himself. "I request permission to speak." Thelver's eyes widened slightly. The human delegation was not scheduled for comment. "I'm speaking anyway." D1 walked toward the center platform. Hyjin called his name, but he ignored her. He stopped beside the Rinki delegates and looked up at the hundreds of representatives surrounding them. "I've been watching this council for 6 months," he said. "I've seen you debate trade agreements and territorial disputes. I've seen you spend weeks arguing about mining rights and shipping lanes. But now, when people are dying, you can't make a decision." "Ambassador D1, Thelver said with warning in his voice, "you are out of order." "Maybe I am, but at least I'm not sitting here while genocide happens." He pointed at the hologram still showing the destruction. "You call yourselves civilized. You have rules and laws and procedures, but what good are they if you won't use them to save lives? Quindar rose, his scales rattling with anger. Your species has been part of this council for less than a year. You don't understand the complexities of galactic politics. I understand that children are dying while you calculate costs. D1 turned to the Rinky delegates. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we brought you here thinking you'd find help. He took a breath and made a decision that would change everything. If no one else will help the Rinky, then humanity will. The chamber erupted. Representatives stood shouting over each other. Some laughed. Others looked shocked. Thelver called for order, his voice barely audible over the noise. Don't be absurd, Quindar said when the noise died down. Your species has 12 warships. 12. The Krath have over 100 in that system alone. You would be destroyed in minutes. Maybe, D1 replied, but we'll still go. This is emotional thinking, another representative called out. Humans are too young to understand that sacrifice without purpose is meaningless. D1 looked around at all of them. You're wrong, we understand perfectly. That's why we'll go. Thelver leaned forward. Ambassador D1, I strongly advise you to reconsider. Your government has not authorized such action. You are making promises you cannot keep. Then I'll make sure my government keeps them. D1 turned and walked back to his seat. His legs felt weak, but he kept his back straight. Hyjin stared at him as he sat down. Do you realize what you just did? Earth doesn't have the military capacity for this. We'll lose everything. I know, he said quietly. The council moved on to other business. The Rinky delegates were escorted out. The hologram of their dying world was turned off. Within minutes, it was as if the plea for help had never happened. But D1 was already accessing his secure communication device. His fingers moved across the keys, typing a message that would travel faster than light back to Earth. He explained the situation. He told them about the Rinky. He admitted that he had made a promise without authorization. Then he wrote the words that would define everything that followed. I know the odds. I know what this will cost. But if we don't help them, then what are we? What does it mean to be human if we can look away from this? He sent the message and waited. Hyjin sat beside him in silence. Around them, the council continued its work. Trade agreements were discussed. Border disputes were mediated. Everything was normal. Except it wasn't. Something had changed. D1 had thrown humanity's future onto a scale, weighing it against the lives of strangers no human had ever met. Now Earth would have to decide if his promise meant anything at all. The Rinky were dying. The galaxy had turned away, but one human had said they would come. Whether humanity would actually answer that call remained to be seen. The message from D1 arrived at Earth's military headquarters at 3 in the morning. Admiral T. Young was already awake, reviewing fleet readiness reports. He read the message 3 times before reaching for his communication device. Within 2 hours, everyone who mattered was gathered in the Situation Room. President Yi-won sat at the head of the table. Around him were military commanders, intelligence officers, and civilian advisors. The room smelled of coffee and tension. Let me make sure I understand, President Yi-won said. Our ambassador promised military aid to an alien species. He did this without authorization. And now we need to decide if we're going to start a war we probably can't win. That's accurate, sir, Admiral T. Young replied. He activated the display screen. Images of the Rinky homeworld appeared, the burning cities, the refugee camps. The situation is worse than what D1 reported. Our intelligence shows the Krath are not just conquering, they're exterminating. This is genocide. Captain Bora stood near the window, arms crossed. She commanded the Incheon, humanity's largest warship. What are we looking at for numbers? The Krath have approximately 120 warships in the Rinky system, an intelligence officer answered. We have 12 capital ships total. Our fighters and support craft bring us to roughly equal numbers in small vessels, but we're severely outmatched in firepower. Dr. Yuna, a civilian scientist and advisor, shook her head. This is suicide. Even if we sent every ship we have, the odds of success are minimal, and if we lose our fleet, Earth would be defenseless. Any hostile species could invade us. She's right, another advisor added. We've only been part of the galactic community for 9 months. We're still learning the political landscape. If we attack the Krath, we'll make enemies. Other species might see us as aggressive and unpredictable. President Yi-Won looked at Admiral T. Young. What's your assessment? The admiral was quiet for a moment. Militarily, it's nearly impossible. We'd be traveling for 3 weeks just to reach them. By the time we arrive, the Rinki might already be gone. If they're not, we'll be exhausted from the journey and facing a fresh enemy fleet. He paused. But the ambassador was right about one thing. This is genocide. If we do nothing, we're saying that's acceptable. Lieutenant Kyung-soo, a young tactical officer, raised his hand. Sir, permission to speak. Go ahead, T-Young said. I've been studying the Krath fleet composition. They're overconfident. They think size equals victory, but we've seen this before in Earth's history. A smaller, more determined force can win if they fight smart. His voice gained strength. We've spent the last year building our fleet expecting to face superior forces. Our ships are designed for exactly this kind of fight. Designed for it, yes, Dr. Yuna countered. But fighting a simulation is different from actual combat. These are real lives we're talking about, human lives. Captain Bora turned from the window. All due respect, Doctor, but we're also talking about 3 billion Rinki lives. They're real too. The room fell silent. President Yi-Won stood and walked to the display screen. He touched the image, making it zoom in on a Rinki city. Smoke rose from collapsed buildings. Tiny figures ran through the streets. My grandmother told me stories, he said quietly, about when Korea was divided, about when her family needed help and no one came. She said the worst pain wasn't the suffering. It was knowing the world was watching and choosing to do nothing. He turned to face the room. I became president because I believed humanity could be better than our worst moments, that we could learn from history instead of repeating it. He looked at each person in the room. What message are we sending if we walk away from this? But sir, an advisor protested, if we lose our fleet, we might not survive as a spacefaring species. Everything we've built could be destroyed. And if we become the kind of species that calculates the value of lives based on political convenience, President Yi-Won asked, what have we built then? Admiral T-Young stood. Sir, if you're asking my opinion, I say we go, not because we'll definitely win, but because it's right. I agree, Captain Bora said immediately. Give me the order and I'll have the Incheon ready to launch in 6 hours. Around the table, other officers nodded. Not all of them. Some still looked doubtful, but enough agreed that the decision felt possible. The logistics will be challenging, an operations officer said. We'll need to strip defenses from Earth orbit. Every ship capable of combat will have to go. Resupply will be nearly impossible once we're en route. Then we pack everything we can carry, T-Young replied, and we hope it's enough. President Yi-Won returned to his seat. I need to think about this. Everyone take a break. We'll reconvene in 2 hours. The room emptied, but Captain Bora remained. She approached the president's desk. Sir, I want to volunteer to lead the fleet. He looked at her. You understand what you're volunteering for? Yes, sir. I have a daughter. She's 7 years old. I think about what kind of world I want her to grow up in. I want her to grow up knowing her mother did the right thing, even when it was hard. You might not come back. I know. Bora's voice was steady. But if I don't go and those people die because no one would help them, then what do I tell my daughter about honor, about duty, about being human? President Yi-Won closed his eyes. When he opened them, his decision was made. 2 hours, then we vote. Those 2 hours passed slowly. Across Earth, news of the situation began to leak. Social media exploded with opinions. Some called for intervention. Others demanded Earth protect itself first. Families of military personnel gathered at bases, waiting for news. When the room reconvened, President Yiwon didn't sit down. "I've made my decision. I want to hear from each of you first." Admiral T. Young. "We go," the admiral said firmly. "Captain Bora." "We go." One by one, the military officers agreed. The civilian advisors were split, but the majority supported action. "Dr. Yuna," the president asked. She was quiet for a long time. "I still think this is incredibly dangerous. I think we might lose everything." She took a breath. "But I also think some things are worth risking everything for. So yes, we go." President Yiwon nodded slowly. "Then it's decided. Admiral, you have authorization to deploy the fleet. Captain Bora, the mission is yours. You'll have complete tactical authority." "Thank you, sir," Bora replied. "Don't thank me yet. You're about to attempt something that might end human spaceflight forever, or might start a legend." He smiled, but it was sad. "I hope it's the second one." The orders went out immediately. Every available warship received deployment instructions. Crews were recalled from leave. Supply ships began loading provisions. Engineers worked frantically to make last-minute repairs and upgrades. At the spaceport, families gathered. Bora knelt in front of her daughter. "I have to go away for a while." "Where?" the little girl asked. "To help some people who need it." "Will you come back?" Bora pulled her daughter close. "I'll try my hardest, and while I'm gone I want you to be brave. Can you do that?" The girl nodded against her shoulder. Similar scenes played out across the port. Soldiers saying goodbye to parents, partners, children. Everyone knew the odds. Everyone understood what might happen. But they went anyway. Captain Bora stood on the bridge of the Incheon as the final preparations were completed. Through the viewport, she could see Earth below, blue and beautiful. Home. "All ships report ready," her communications officer said. "Then let's go save some people," Bora replied. The fleet launched. 12 capital ships, dozens of smaller vessels, thousands of humans heading toward a battle they might not survive. Behind them, Earth watched and waited. President Yiwon stood at his office window, watching the lights of the ships disappear into the darkness. "Good luck," he whispered. The galaxy had turned away from the Rinki, but humanity was coming. Whether they would arrive in time, whether they could actually win, no one knew. But they were coming anyway. The Incheon shook as its engines pushed beyond their normal limits. Captain Bora gripped her chair and watched the readings on her display. They had been traveling for 16 days. 21 more days remained before they reached the Rinki system. Engine efficiency dropping to 82%, Engineer Sunwoo reported from his station. Sweat ran down his face despite the cool air. "We're pushing these systems harder than they were designed for." "Can they hold?" Bora asked. "For now, but we're going to arrive with equipment that's already damaged, if we have to fight immediately." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Bora understood. They were running a marathon before boxing match, and their opponent would be fresh and ready. Across the fleet, other ships faced similar problems. The destroyer Gwangju had lost 2 of its coolant systems. The cruiser Busan was running on backup power generators. Every ship carried more supplies than it was rated for, straining their frameworks and systems. In the medical bay, Jaiwon prepared for casualties. She had converted every available space into treatment areas. Beds lined the walls. Medical equipment was stacked in corners. She had enough supplies for maybe 300 wounded, but if the battle went badly, there would be thousands. "Do you think we can actually win?" her assistant asked while organizing bandages. Jaiwon was quiet for a moment. "I think we can try. Sometimes that's enough." On the bridge, Lieutenant Kyung-soo monitored communications. The galactic news networks were broadcasting constantly about the human fleet. Most of the coverage was not kind. "They're calling us fools," he told Bora. "Some species are placing bets on how fast the craft will destroy us. The odds are 97-3 against us." "Only 97, Bora smiled slightly. "I expected worse." "There's more." The Krath commander issued a statement. He said, "The primitive humans will learn their place. We will crush them as easily as we crushed the Renki." Bora felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "Make sure every ship in our fleet hears that. Let them know what we're up against." Throughout the fleet, soldiers prepared in different ways. Some exercised to stay sharp. Others wrote letters home, just in case. Many gathered in common areas to talk and try to ease their fear. Ensign Yunha ran the ship's communication system. She made sure messages from Earth reached the crew, letters from families, updates about home, small reminders of what they were fighting for. One evening, she broadcast a message from a school on Earth. Children had recorded videos thanking the soldiers. "My dad is on your ship," one girl said to the camera. "Please keep him safe, and please save the Renki. They deserve help." The message played throughout the fleet. Bora saw several crew members wipe tears from their eyes. The pressure was enormous. They were carrying not just Earth's military hopes, but its moral identity. 3 weeks into the journey, they received updated intelligence from the Renki system. The news was not good. Renki population now estimated at 2.3 billion, an intelligence officer reported. The Krath are bombing civilian centers daily. Underground shelters are running out of supplies. Bora pulled up the tactical display. How much longer do they have? Best estimate, 3 weeks, maybe 4 if they ration everything. They would barely arrive in time, if they arrived at all. That night, Bora recorded a message, not to Earth but to her crew. She sent it to every ship in the fleet. "I know you're scared," her recorded face said from screens throughout the ships. "I'm scared too. We're traveling toward a battle that most of the galaxy thinks we can't win. We're outgunned and outnumbered. We're exhausted before we even start fighting." She paused. "But I want you to remember why we're doing this. The Renki asked the galaxy for help. Every species with power said no. They calculated the costs and decided those lives weren't worth saving. But we're humans. We don't accept that math." Her voice grew stronger. "We might fail. We might not survive this. But we're going anyway because someone has to stand up and say that all lives matter. That genocide is never acceptable. That watching and doing nothing is its own kind of evil." She looked directly at the camera. "I'm proud to serve with you. Whatever happens at the end of this journey, know that what we're doing matters. We're showing the galaxy what humanity stands for. We're proving that being civilized isn't about having the biggest fleet or the most advanced technology. It's about having the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard." The message ended. Across the fleet, soldiers sat quietly, thinking about her words. Some felt inspired. Others felt the weight of what was coming. But all of them understood the importance of their mission. On the Renki homeworld, the situation grew more desperate each day. The survivors had retreated into massive underground shelters. They shared their last food. Mothers held hungry children. The old gave up their rations so the young could eat. In the central command shelter, the Renki leaders gathered around a communications display. They had detected something approaching their system. At first, they thought it was more Krath reinforcements. Then the identification codes came through, human ships. "Is it true?" one leader asked. "Did they really come?" "The signatures match," the communications officer replied. 12 human warships, multiple support vessels. They're still 3 days out, but they're coming." The shelter fell silent. Then someone started crying. Within moments the sound spread through the room. Relief, hope, gratitude. "Alert all shelters," the leader said. Tell everyone the humans are coming, we're not alone anymore. The message spread through the underground networks. People who had given up hope found reason to hold on a little longer. Children asked their parents if the humans would really help them. Parents, not knowing what else to do, said yes. Above ground, the Krath fleet detected the approaching humans. Commander Vector reviewed the information with amusement. 12 ships, he said to his officers. The humans send 12 ships against our fleet. This is insulting. Perhaps they hope to negotiate, one officer suggested. Then they will be disappointed. Vector leaned back in his command chair. When they arrive, we will destroy them quickly. It will be good target practice for our new crews, and it will send a message to the rest of the galaxy. No one interferes with the Krath Dominion. He issued orders to his fleet. They would meet the humans at the edge of the system, a quick battle, an easy victory. Then they could return to finishing off the Renki. 2 days later, the human fleet crossed into the Renki system. Alarms sounded throughout the ships. Combat stations were manned. Weapons systems came online. Captain Bora stood on her bridge, watching the sensor readings. The Krath fleet was forming up ahead of them. 120 warships against their 12. It looked impossible. All ships report ready, her communications officer said. Bora took a breath. Send a message to the Krath commander. Tell him we're here to stop the genocide. Tell him to withdraw his forces or face the consequences. The message was sent. Minutes passed, then the response came. The Krath commander says, "Go home, primitives. This is not your concern. Leave now or die with the Renki." Bora looked at her crew. She saw determination on their faces. Fear too, but determination stronger. "Send a response," she said. "Tell him, we are humanity. We don't abandon people who need help, and we don't run from bullies." She turned to her tactical officer. "All ships, battle formation. Prepare to engage." The fleet moved forward. Behind them was a 3-week journey and a galaxy that expected them to fail. Ahead was an enemy that thought they were weak. The Renki watched from below, holding their breath. The galaxy watched from afar, waiting to see what would happen. The humans had come. Against all odds, against all advice, they had crossed the stars to answer a desperate plea. Now they would fight, and win or lose, they would show the galaxy what it meant to be human. The first shot came from the Krath flagship. A beam of energy that could vaporize a building crossed the space between the fleets in seconds. It struck the human destroyer Digu. The ship's shields flared bright blue, absorbing most of the impact, but the vessel shook violently. "Return fire," Captain Bora commanded. The human fleet opened up. Missiles streaked across the void. Energy weapons painted lines of light in the darkness. The battle had begun. Commander Vector watched from his bridge with confidence. His fleet outnumbered the humans 10-1. This would be over quickly. All ships advance, surround them and destroy them. But the humans didn't fight the way he expected. Instead of meeting the Krath advance head-on, the human fleet split into 3 groups. Each group moved at different speeds and angles, making it harder to target them all at once. "They're using irregular tactics," a Krath officer reported. "Our targeting systems are having difficulty tracking multiple vectors." "Then adjust," Vector snapped. "There are only 12 ships. Focus fire and eliminate them one at a time." The Krath fleet began to turn, trying to bring more weapons to bear. But turning a massive fleet took time. The humans were smaller, faster, more agile. Lieutenant Kyung-soo monitored his tactical display on the Incheon. "The Krath are trying to box us in. Recommended we accelerate toward their left flank. It's less defended." "Do it," Bora agreed. "All ships follow our lead. Attack pattern Delta 7. The human fleet curved through space, their engines burning bright. They avoided the center of the Krath formation and instead struck at the edges, hitting ships that were too far from immediate support. The destroyer Ulsan fired a volley of missiles at a Krath cruiser. The enemy's shields took the first few hits, but the fourth missile penetrated and exploded inside the hull. The craft ship began venting atmosphere. "First kill," someone shouted on the Ulsan's bridge. But there was no time to celebrate. 3 more craft ships were targeting them. Energy beams crisscrossed around the destroyer, finding their mark. The Ulsan's shields failed. The ship took direct hits to its engines. "Ulsan reports critical damage," the communications officer told Bora. "They're losing power. Tell them to fall back behind the cruiser Jeju. Have Jeju provide cover fire." The battle evolved into chaos. Ships from both sides weaved through space, trying to get firing solutions while avoiding enemy weapons. Explosions lit the darkness. Debris scattered in all directions. Engineer Sunwoo worked frantically on the Incheon. Power distribution failing on decks 4 through 6, rerouting through secondary systems. "How long can we maintain this?" Bora asked. "Unknown. We're using power configurations that were never tested. Something's going to break eventually. Make sure it breaks after we win, not before." Wing Commander Dong Hyun led a squadron of human fighters against the Krath capital ships. The fighters were tiny compared to the warships, but that was their advantage. They could slip through the spaces between the big ships, attacking weak points. "Gold Squadron, follow me," Dong Hyun said over the comm. "We're going for the flagship's engine section." The fighters dove toward the massive Krath command ship. Point defense weapons tried to track them, filling space with projectiles. 2 fighters exploded, pilots dying instantly, but the rest made it through. "Missiles away," Dong Hyun released his payload. The other fighters did the same. Dozens of small missiles struck the flagship's engines. The damage wasn't enough to destroy the ship, but it was enough to slow it down. The flagship began falling behind the rest of the Krath formation. "Good hit, Gold Squadron," Bora transmitted. "Reform and prepare for another run." But the Krath were adapting. Vector realized the humans were using their mobility as a weapon. "Close formation," he ordered. "Don't let them separate us. Mutual support only." The Krath fleet began moving together, creating overlapping fields of fire. It was harder for the humans to find weak spots now, and every exchange of fire hurt the humans more than the Krath. They simply had more ships to lose. The cruiser Pohang took a direct hit to its bridge. Half the command crew died instantly. The executive officer took control, bleeding from a head wound, and kept the ship fighting. The destroyer Anson's weapons systems failed. Rather than retreat, the captain ordered ramming speed. "If we can't shoot them, we'll hit them. All crew to escape pods. I'm staying to steer her in." "Captain, you'll die," his first officer protested. "Better one of us than all of us. Get to the pods, that's an order." The crew evacuated while the captain guided the crippled destroyer toward a Krath battleship. The enemy fired continuously, tearing the human ship apart piece by piece, but it kept coming. At the last moment, the captain activated the self-destruct sequence. The Anson struck the Krath battleship and exploded. The combined detonation was massive. Both ships were destroyed. Debris scattered across thousands of kilometers. "The Anson is gone," the communications officer reported quietly, "but she took one of their battleships with her." Bora felt the weight of those deaths. 100 crew members lost. One captain who chose to sacrifice himself. Noted in the log, "They will be remembered." On the Incheon, Chief Hana worked in engineering, performing miracles. The ship's power systems were failing, so she bypassed safety protocols to push more energy to the weapons and shields. It was dangerous. The systems could overload and explode, but if they didn't do it, they'd be destroyed anyway. "Weapon power at 130%, she reported. "Shield integrity holding at 70% despite damage. I don't know how long this will last." "Long enough," Bora replied. "It has to be long enough." The battle had been raging for 2 hours. The human fleet was battered. 4 ships destroyed or crippled beyond use. The remaining 8 were all damaged, but the Krath had lost 12 ships completely and many more were damaged. Vector stared at his tactical display in disbelief. How are they still fighting? They should have been destroyed an hour ago. The humans are using unconventional power distribution, an officer reported. They're pushing their systems far beyond normal operational parameters. It shouldn't be possible. And yet they're doing it. Vector slammed his fist on his chair. All ships concentrate fire on their flagship, kill their commander and they'll break. The entire Krath fleet began targeting the Inchin. Energy beams and missiles converged on Bora's ship. Incoming fire from multiple vectors, Kyung-Soo warned. We can't dodge them all. Then we don't dodge. All power to forward shields. Return fire on their flagship. The Inchin shuddered as weapons struck its shields. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Sections lost atmosphere. Crew members were thrown from their stations, but the ship kept firing. Bora held onto her chair as the deck tilted beneath her. Status report. Shields failing. Hull breaches on decks 2, 5, and 8. Casualties mounting. In the medical bay, Jaiwon worked on an injured engineer while explosions rocked the ship. Hold still, she shouted over the noise. Around her, other medics treated dozens of wounded crew members. Another impact. The lights flickered. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. We can't take much more of this, Sunwoo said from engineering. Primary power is gone. We're on backup systems. One more good hit and we're finished. Bora looked at her tactical display. The Krath flagship was ahead of them, its weapons still firing. An idea formed in her mind. A desperate, crazy idea. All remaining ships, she transmitted to the fleet. Concentrate all fire on the enemy flagship. Everything we have, now. Every human ship still able to fight turned their weapons on Vector's command vessel. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic projectiles. All of it struck the flagship within seconds. The Krath ship's shields collapsed. Explosions rippled across its hull. The bridge took a direct hit. Vector had just enough time to realize he had underestimated the humans before his ship exploded around him. The flagship broke apart, taking the Krath commander and 500 crew members with it. The destruction of the flagship changed everything. The Krath fleet hesitated. Without their commander, without clear orders, they didn't know what to do. They're breaking formation, Kyung-Soo shouted. Some ships are retreating. Bora saw her opening. All ships press the attack. Don't give them time to reorganize. The human fleet, battered and bleeding, pushed forward. They hit the confused Krath ships hard, exploiting their hesitation. More enemy vessels were destroyed or damaged badly enough to flee. Within 30 minutes, the Krath fleet was in full retreat. Ships jumped to faster-than-light speeds, running from the system. They left behind dozens of wrecked vessels and thousands of dead. The humans had won, but the cost was terrible. Bora slumped in her chair, exhausted. Status of our fleet. The reports came in. 4 ships destroyed completely. 3 more so damaged they could barely function. The remaining 5 were all hurt, many systems failing. But they had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. Open a channel to the Rinki, Bora said. A moment later, a Rinki face appeared on the screen. The alien was crying. You came, you actually came, and you saved us. Bora managed a tired smile. That's what we said we'd do. The battle was over. The Krath were gone. And 3 billion Rinki were alive because humanity had answered their call with fire. Captain Bora stood in the medical bay of the Inchin, her arm in a sling. Around her, the wounded filled every available space. Medic Jaiwon moved between patients, her uniform stained with blood. She had been working for 12 hours straight without rest. How many? Bora asked quietly. Jaiwon didn't stop working as she answered. 4,217 confirmed dead across the fleet. Another 3,000 wounded. Some of them won't make it. Bora closed her eyes. Over 7,000 casualties, nearly half of the people who had come with her. The names and faces would haunt her forever, but they had saved 3 billion lives. Outside the ship, the Rinky homeworld slowly emerged from hiding. Underground shelters opened. Families climbed to the surface and saw their cities damaged but still standing. The Krath were gone. They were alive. Human ships moved into stable orbit. Engineers began making emergency repairs. Supply ships distributed food and medical supplies to the Rinky below. It would take years for the planet to fully recover, but they had a chance now. In the capital city, the Rinky leaders met with Bora via video link. She couldn't leave her ship yet, but they needed to see her face. "We have no words sufficient to thank you," the senior Rinky leader said. Tears ran down his gray fur. "You crossed the stars to save us. You fought a battle you should have lost. You sacrificed your people for ours." "We did what anyone should have done," Bora replied. "We answered your call for help." The council did not answer. The galaxy did not answer. Only humanity came. The leader placed his small hand on his chest. "We will never forget this. Our children will know the story. Our children's children will know. For all of our existence, we will remember that when we needed help, the humans came." Bora felt emotion rising in her throat. "Take care of yourselves. Rebuild. That's the best way to honor those we lost." Back on Earth, news of the victory spread quickly. President Yi-1 addressed the planet from his office. "Today, humanity proved something important. Not that we have the strongest military or the best technology, but that we have the courage to stand up for what's right, even when the cost is high." He paused, looking at the camera. "We lost over 4,000 brave people in this battle. They died fighting for strangers. They died proving that genocide is never acceptable. They died showing the galaxy what it means to be civilized." Across Earth, people mourned the dead and celebrated the victory at the same time. Families of the fallen received honors. Children asked their parents what the Rinky looked like. Schools taught lessons about the battle. In the Galactic Council chamber, an emergency session was called. Ambassador D1 stood at the center platform once again. But this time, no one was looking away. Every representative in the chamber was watching him. Thelver, the council speaker, looked uncomfortable. "Ambassador D1, the council wishes to acknowledge the human military action in the Rinky system. We understand that your forces successfully repelled the Krath invasion." "We did more than repel them," D1 replied. His voice was cold. "We saved 3 billion lives that this council voted to abandon." The chamber was silent. No one met his eyes. Representative Quindar finally spoke. "We made our decision based on strategic calculations. We could not have known your species would succeed against such odds." "You made your decision based on cowardice," D1 said flatly. "You calculated the cost of helping and decided it was too high. You have the largest fleet in the galaxy and you did nothing. We had 12 ships and we went anyway." "You were fortunate," another representative said defensively. "The odds were against you." "The odds were against the Rinky too, but they deserved better than odds. They deserved help." D1 looked around the chamber. "I want every species here to understand something. Humanity is new to this council. We're still learning how things work, but we learned something important from watching you debate while people died." He pointed at the empty space where the Rinky had pleaded weeks ago. "We learned that having power means nothing if you won't use it to protect the weak. We learned that civilization isn't about technology or military strength. It's about having the moral courage to do what's right." A few representatives looked ashamed. Others looked angry, but no one interrupted. "The Rinky will rebuild," D1 continued, "and humanity will help them. We'll station ships in their system to make sure the Krath don't come back. We'll share resources even though we don't have much to share, because that's what you do when someone needs help." He walked back to his seat. Hyjin was waiting there, smiling proudly. "That was quite a speech," she whispered. "Someone needed to say it," he replied. Over the following weeks, the political landscape shifted. Other smaller species began approaching humanity for alliances. They saw what the humans had done. They saw that humanity kept its promises, even when those promises were costly. The Krath Dominion, humiliated by their defeat, retreated into their own territory. They issued no statements, made no threats. They had learned that the primitive humans were more dangerous than they looked. Some of the larger species offered quiet apologies to humanity. Others remained defensive, insisting their original decision had been correct. But everyone had seen what happened. Everyone knew that when it mattered, only the humans had acted. On the Rinki homeworld, construction of a memorial began. It would be built in the center of the capital city, where everyone could see it. The design showed a human soldier standing beside a Rinki child, both looking toward the stars. Bora visited the construction site 2 months after the battle. Her arm had healed. Most of the wounded had recovered, but the dead were still dead, and she carried their memory every day. A young Rinki approached her. He couldn't have been more than 6 years old. He held out a small drawing. It showed spaceships and stars drawn in crayon. "I made this for you," the child said shyly, "to say thank you." Bora knelt down and took the drawing carefully. "What is it?" "It's your ship saving us. My teacher said you came from far away to help. I want to be like you when I grow up." Bora felt tears in her eyes. "Then be brave, be kind, and always help people who need it." The child nodded seriously and ran back to his mother. The mother bowed deeply to Bora, gratitude clear in every movement. Later that day, Bora stood in the memorial plaza alone. The foundation was being poured. Workers moved around her, building something that would last for centuries. Lieutenant Kyung-soo found her there. "The fleet is ready to return to Earth, Captain. Final repairs are complete." "How many ships did we lose again?" "4 destroyed completely, but the others will make it home." Bora nodded slowly. "We left Earth with 12 capital ships. We're returning with 8, 4,000 dead, and 3 billion Rinki alive." "Was it worth it?" Kyung-soo asked quietly. Bora looked at the construction workers. She thought about the child with the drawing. She remembered the Rinki faces when they learned they were saved. Yes, it was worth it. The human fleet left Rinki space a week later. The planet's entire population came outside to watch them go. They filled the streets and parks, looking up at the sky. As the ships passed overhead, they waved. Some cried. All of them remembered. The journey home took 3 weeks. When Earth appeared in their viewports, Bora felt relief wash over her. They had made it. Not everyone, but enough. They had gone into the darkness and come back changed. The ships landed to massive celebrations. Families reunited. Medals were awarded. But also funerals were held. Empty chairs at tables. Children who would grow up without parents. President Yiwon met with Bora privately. "You did something impossible. You saved 3 billion lives and changed how the galaxy sees us." "We lost a lot of good people," Bora replied. "I know, and their sacrifice meant something. It showed the galaxy what humanity stands for." He looked out the window at Earth below. "We're not the strongest species. We're not the smartest, but we might be the only ones willing to risk everything for what's right." Bora thought about that. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's what matters most. Months passed. Life returned to normal, or as normal as it could be. The story of the battle spread through the galaxy. Some species told it as a tale of human recklessness. Others told it as a story of courage. But everyone told it, everyone knew. The Rinki rebuilt their world with human assistance. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges began. A friendship formed between 2 species who had been strangers before, one's desperate plea and the other's willing answer. In the Galactic Council, Humanity's voice carried more weight now. When they spoke about moral issues, others listened. They had earned respect not through power, but through principle. D1 still served as ambassador. One day, a new crisis emerged. Another species under attack, another plea for help. The council prepared to debate, to calculate costs, to consider strategic implications. But before they could begin, humanity made an announcement. We will help them. Who wants to join us? This time other species stepped forward, not all of them, but enough. The galaxy was learning a lesson. That civilization required more than just rules and procedures. It required the willingness to act, to sacrifice, to help. The humans had taught them that, with fire and blood and courage, with 4,000 lives given freely for strangers. They had pleaded for help. The galaxy turned away, but humanity answered with fire. And in doing so, they had shown everyone what it truly meant to be human, what it meant to be civilized, what it meant to be worthy of the stars. The Rinki would never forget, and neither would the galaxy. The story would be told for generations, of the day humanity crossed the void to save strangers, of the day principles mattered more than calculations, of the day fire answered a plea that the galaxy had ignored. And the universe was better for it.